In this video, I'm going over every stunner in Zenless Zone Zero. How good were they at launch, how they aged, how they are doing today, and whether they're actually worth running, or if you're better off just running double support.
I'll be the one who lights the flame.
Here comes the first.
I'll fight your throat out.
Beg for mercy. Red bad Kool-Aid.
I'm unstoppable.
Sniper's Creed. One shot, one kill.
So, what do stunners even do? Most enemies have a stun bar. Everyone can raise it. But stunners have more days and impact. Therefore, they feel it way faster. When the bar maxes out, you trigger a stun window. Chain attacks unlock and the enemy takes bonus damage. And once the stun ends, you start the cycle again. Not every team actually needs a stunner, since some comps deal way more damage outside of the stun window and would rather stack raw damage or buffs instead. But a lot of attack and rupture teams still use one. The thing is, which stunner you bring matters a lot. Some stunners are so weak you're better off running a second support, and some are so busted they slide into basically any team without effort. Now that you know how stunners work, let's get into every single stunner in the game and explain how they work. Anby is one of the first characters you ever touch in the game. She is an A-rank electric stunner and her entire identity is stunning. That's it. She brings no other utility whatsoever. Her kit and mindscapes only boost her own personal damage, which isn't impressive to begin with. The only real reason you would ever bring her in is to activate certain additional abilities that require something like have an electric unit or have a character from the same faction. And she can fulfill those conditions, but you're always better off ignoring those passives entirely and running a real support instead. The damage gain from a proper support easily outweighs anything you get from activating those additional abilities. Her other use case is copying her into a DPS, but that's purely for fun. It works enough to be amusing, but it's not something most players would ever invest in seriously. So overall, Anby has basically no place in the meta. You will only use her when you have no other option. I'm gonna close my eyes.
Got a tough job, huh?
Koleda is an S-rank standard character, which means she's always in the pool and you can lose your goddamn 50-50 to her. I have been there too many fucking times. Anyway, what does she do? She stuns fast, very fast, and that's basically what she does. She does have a debuff that increases chain attack damage, but it only activates if you're running fire units or other Bellowbug characters. That means, realistically, she only works with Soldier 11 or Evelyn. The problem is, Soldier 11 isn't doing more than 2 chain attacks in most stun windows, and while Evelyn does fire off a ton of them, her ultimate hits insanely hard too, and Koleda's buff doesn't apply to ultimates, so even in her best case scenario, the value just isn't there. At the end of the day, Koleda is basically a faster Anby. Her buff is only active in Evelyn and Soldier teams, and when it is, it's not that big of a deal anyway. She's the stunner you pull out only when you don't have anyone better to run, the same as Anby. This video is sponsored by me. If you want to support me, feel free to subscribe and like and stuff like that. But if you want to support me further, just buy me some monochrome. Don't give me money, just buy me some monochrome. I live in a country where money transfer is kind of complicated. Other than that, enjoy the video. Lycaon is the other standard banner stunner, but unlike Koleda, he doesn't suck to do balls. He boosts the stun damage multiply by 35% and gives ice resistance shred, which lets your ice DPS units hit harder. He fits perfectly with characters like Ellen, Miyabi, Hugo, and Idhari, and every time a new ice DPS drops, his name immediately comes back into the conversation. Outside of ice teams, he doesn't really bring anything, but that's completely fine. He does one job and he does it extremely well. His day's output is also solid as long as you actually give him the field time he needs. Overall, he's one of the few characters you can lose your 50-50 to and not feel bad about. His dupes mostly suck balls though, so you're allowed to be mad when you pull dupes. Qingyi is our very first limited stunner and my personal favorite stunner in the game, released in version 1.1. She's a very field hungry unit with the ability to buff a stun window damage by 80%, but she needs to stay on field and execute her full combo to do it. She can push burst DPS characters to new heights and fits into many teams, but she does have a few problems. Her field hungry playstyle means she wants to stay on field, and if your DPS is also an on-field hungry unit, they won't synergize well together. And because of her high days output, she sometimes ends up stunning the enemy before she can finish her whole combo, meaning you won't get the full 80% amplification. When she came out, she could be slotted into Zhuan teams because she can be played as a burst DPS, but with Astra's release, you were better off running Nicole and Astra together to get the best performance out of Zhuan. Another character she works well with is Harumasa. They work together like bread and butter, and she is the best in a slot option for him. It did not change in the future. There was not a physical stunner that replaced her. Qingyi can also work with Hugo, but since Hugo runs double stunners anyway, his teams already end up triggering stun too fast, making missing the full buff a very real possibility. The last character Qingyi fits well with is Yishuan. She's a very field hungry DPS, but because a huge portion of her damage happens during the stun window, Qingyi's amplification ends up being very good with her, and the amount of time field Yishuan needs ends up being just enough for Qingyi to finish her full combo. Overall, Qingyi is a character you can get good use out of if you already have her, but she's not a unit I would recommend people to actively pull for if they are in the market for a stunner.
Yes, it's lighter. It's fucking lighter. I'm sure it's lighter. It's lighter. Lighter.
お待ちしておりましたわ、ご主人様。
Lighter came out in 1.3 as a very specialized stunner. He can buff the shit out of fire and ice characters. He also extends the stun window by 3 seconds, which is insanely strong. He is the best option for units like Hugo and Evelyn, and nobody came even close before a certain someone appeared. Also, because of his restrictive additional ability, which only works with attack characters or characters of the same faction, he ends up not being very good with units like Idhari or Ban Yue since the rupture. Anyway, outside of fire and ice teams, he's pretty useless. That's basically lighter for you. Trigger came out in 1.6 and she was the first off-field stunner we ever got. She's on the field for the first 3 seconds of the fight and then she just off and never comes back. And get this, she has the ability to increase the stun damage multiplier by 35% inside and outside of a stun. That means she gives you 35% more damage all the fucking time. Now, I'm not saying she's a gold digger, but she sure as hell isn't messing with you unless you pull her signature W engine. Is it really that big of a deal? Kind of. Her engine gives her more days, but that's not the important part. It also gives her a whole bunch of dev shredder. You basically get a mini Nicole inside your trigger, meaning trigger is into war. Her W engine is what makes her tricky to recommend. Without it, she is a bit worse, but she is still useful in Seed and Anby teams. With her W engine, she is very useful. But with most attackers, you are better off running Nicole anyway. With the introduction of Yishuan and the whole Rupture class, who ignore 100% of enemy defense anyway, her dependence on the W engine matters a lot less on those teams especially. What I'm trying to say is this: if you have her W engine, she's very flexible, she can even fit into anomaly teams and be very fucking good at what she does. Without it, she's definitely better than Pulchra. I could talk about her and her engine for hours, but the bottom line is this: she's very nice. Let's move on. Fufu came out in 2.0 as another off-field stunner. She has the ability to buff ultimate and... what? Pulchra? Come on man, nobody plays Pulchra, I don't want to talk. Pulchra came out in 1.6, the same patch as Trigger. She's an off-field stunner just like Trigger. Her gimmick is that she buffs aftershock damage by 30%, which means she can buff characters like Anby and Orphe, but mainly Anby. If you get her to M6, that damage buff becomes universal, which suddenly makes it useful for literally any type of damage. She's a very underrated unit. If you don't have that many limited supports or stunners, she can carry a lot of weight. Her days output is good, her ultimate hits surprisingly hard, and she's alright. But people keep saying she is very close to Trigger if she doesn't have her engine. That shit ain't true, my guy. Pulchra can feel the whole Trigger leaves, but she ain't gonna feel it as good as she does. Anyway, Pulchra is fine. Let's move on. Fufu came out in 2.0 as another off-field stunner. She has the ability to buff chain attack and ultimate damage. She increases the ultimate cap by 1000 for all the characters on the team, and she gives back 300 decibels if an attack or rupture character uses their ultimate. And she also gives you a bunch of crit damage. Fufu is pretty good. She gives you more ultimates in a fight and increases the damage of your ultimates. She is nice to have. But is she a very crazy fucking stupid ass stunner? No. She is, was the best option for Yishuan by a small margin. Before a certain someone dropped. She was pretty good with Hugo and Evelyn if you didn't have Lighter. She is also very nice with Ihari and Monato, and she will probably be good with Ban Yu. She doesn't really need her engine, but if you want to max out her crit damage buff, you kinda need it. Her value isn't really in that crit buff anyway. It's about the extra ultimate she gives you and the damage she adds to them. Overall, she's a nice character to have. I would say if you have Trigger with her engine, you don't need her at all, and for Rupture characters in my experience, they are very close. Overall, she's just Trigger, but she ain't a gold digger that needs her engine. Imagine coming home to your wife, getting absolutely pounded by a stranger, screaming her name in a way she never called yours. That stranger is Dialyn. She became the best in slot option in many teams, and even when she isn't the best in slot, she's very close. Let me pull her first and then we can talk about her. Okay, we have 120 pulls. Let's go. Another Grace. Another Grace is good. Okay, another 10 pull. I'm happy. Let me upgrade this little bitch. Seems cool. We have energy regen. Holy shit. Okay. Nice. Bye. Up until now, stunners did something they were very good at. They buffed the stun damage window, they offered some niche elemental synergy, or they just existed to be off-field batteries. Dialyn showed up, looks at all of that and goes, I'ma do my own thing. My name is Fufu. I give you 300 decibel refund. I increase the ultimate cap. Shut up. I give you a free ultimate, not refund decibels so you can maybe squeeze out another one later. Dialyn literally upgrades your next chain attack into a guaranteed ultimate, and she can force it outside of the stun window. Nobody else does this. Then you have her team buff, a universal team-wide 40% damage increase with nearly infinite uptime, which is very good. She also gives you 30% stun damage multiplier and extends the stun by 2 seconds. Lighter extends it by 3 seconds but gives no multiplier. Qingyi gives a massive stun window buffs but cannot add time. Dialyn does all of this shit at once. She also does get some buffs for her own personal damage. Everything she does overlaps with something another stunner does, but she does all of it at the same time with fewer restrictions, fewer conditions, and way more consistency. She fits into attack teams, rupture teams, and she still ends up being one of the best options. And in cases like Lighter for Evelyn or Trigger for Anby and C teams, she is very close. She is definitely better than Fufu and Qingyi. She is very crazy. Now, after all of this, how do we feel about stunners? Well, they are a very interesting bunch. When the game began, we had the stunners that were only able to stun. Outside of Lycaon, all of them only gave you buffs that work inside of the stun window. Lighter was the first to give us buffs outside of the stun window, and Trigger alongside Pulchra were our first off-fielders. Fufu gave vastly different buffs in practice, but she was basically just Trigger. And Dialyn took everything that came before her and made it a lot better. I do not think characters that break the ceiling in such a way are good for the game, because right now I do not see any reason to pull Fufu or Qingyi. Compared to Dialyn, they just don't offer anything. Lighter is good in a few teams, and Trigger without her engine is kinda meh. But Dialyn doesn't need no engine, isn't restricted to any teams, and she's really good. I don't really know about this one, man. Subscribe. Shout out to my original homie Nana, who helped me with the script. He helped me fact check stuff, so thank you, Nana. See you guys later. I kinda feel dead inside because Qingyi is kinda dead. Peace out.